Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at Super Micro Computer. It is time for another update. And on this chart, we are still tracking this idea of an impulse. Although, as I remind you in every single video we cover, talking about this impulse, it is an extremely fragile interpretation. Even if we succeed and we don't form another low within this wave 4 correction, we might still be better off with tracking another interpretation in the larger time frame, because for this to actually work out, we will need to track here a series of 1-2 setups that would have formed throughout the years, and this could indeed build a wave 3 to the upside. But honestly, within this structure, if we form a reset of the wave 4, I would already strongly believe this is a more significant stop within a completely different pattern. We would need to very likely track it as a diagonal, and we would very likely need to consider that the impulse will not have worked out even if we manage to hold the area of support. So for this to even have the small chance it has in working out, we would need to not reset the wave 4 low. It could theoretically extend to the sideways within a triangle, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that interpretation, especially based on the internal structure we have within this correction. Whoops, I took the wrong tool. Within this correction. Now, in this pattern, again, we have been looking for a potential bottom in the wave 4, but we haven't been tracking necessarily any specific scenario within this movement to the upside in such an idea. But we have been tracking this orange interpretation that would track an extension to lower prices, and the green structure that would look for a possible extension within the orange interpretation. So in orange, we are looking here at a potential A, B, C movement to take us to even lower prices. We would already have a 1-2 setup in place, and we would be tracking the third wave to the downside. So far so good. We would be within the wave 3 of the large wave 3, and we seem to be following through that interpretation quite nicely. We cannot really complain, I have to say, and I would expect overall continued downside until we get a signal that a more substantial bottom is indeed in place. Now, for the green scenario, we are tracking a possible reset of the wave B in orange, nothing more substantial. Yeah, it would be very difficult to actually track a reliable large time frame structure to new highs even within a fifth wave in white, because from the current low, we only have a 3-wave pattern to the upside, and the likelihood of something bullish going on and taking us to higher prices will be extremely difficult to actually track. It will be reduced, and it would require us to identify an internal 5-wave move to the upside before we actually even have a reliable chance of looking for continuation to higher prices. And to be honest, if we form this 5 move to the upside within this area, right now I would consider it as nothing more than an ABC pattern, something similar to that, to be honest. Now, nonetheless, we are having this idea on the chart. We have an area of support going all the way down to the $23 level, and at the same time, this last level of support at the 78.6% retracement would also be an indication that we should expect even more strongly, if broken, this orange idea, this orange structure to follow through. Now, for the ideal target for the wave 3 in orange, we would be looking here at the 138.2% extension of the wave 1 around the $18.6 level. If this is to indeed build the entire wave 3, I see no issue for this structure to actually get to that area. But for now, I believe even internally, we should expect continued downside within this wave 3. So, in this structure, we have been looking at a 1-2 setup, and we have been considering already a more substantial bottom to be in place within a wave 3. We were looking for this area of resistance to create the reaction to generate the fifth wave to the downside, and here we have the levels between the $32.8 all the way up to the $39.6 level. As long as we hold below the 50% retracement, I cannot look for a more substantial bottom to be in place within this structure. I will continue to look for this third wave to extend to even lower prices. So in the previous video, we did identify, however, a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside within this very small time frame. It was going to be an extremely fragile structure, but nonetheless, we did have an area of support we were tracking for potential continuation to higher prices. So in yellow, we were looking even for a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside. So if we follow through in this expectation of a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we will be able to have a larger 1-2 setup. This would actually become interesting if it ends up developing. However, within blue, we had the area of support and the correction internally, but we were tracking this interpretation for a possible reset of the orange scenario within an ABC structure. So even now that we actually did get our reaction, our additional push to higher prices, we are still under a significant threat that we continue in our 50 to the downside. When we got this initial 5-wave move to the upside, it wasn't impossible to descend directly in the 50 in orange, but it was going to be a preference to have a reset of the correction, because in this wave 4, we normally expect to build a 3-wave pattern or potentially a triangle. In neither of those do we actually track a diagonal structure as we have in this area. So we were strongly preferring in the previous video to actually extend to higher prices, and we had the last level of support at the $28.9. We have touched it a couple of times, yeah, we have even went briefly below it in a 1-hour window, but nothing significant, and now we have extended to higher prices. So what can we expect of this development? So again, in orange, I will only be looking for an ABC pattern to develop to complete the structure and to look for continuation in a 5th wave to complete a larger wave 3. In yellow, we will be tracking a potential wave 3, but we would need to achieve the 138.2% extension of the wave 1 to even have a chance to reliably track a potential correction in a wave 4. In the case of this pattern, that sits at a $37.3 level. In the case of the wave C in orange, the ideal target is the 100% extension of the wave A. That is achieved already at the $34.7 level. Now keep in mind, within the wave C, even if we extend further, it would not be a problem. And to be honest, if we look internally at this pattern, I would actually prefer that we extend higher in either interpretation, because this count does not look quite full, although at the same time, I would not blink if we were to fail holding the area of support and descend directly in the 50 to the downside, since this is an incredibly small time frame and distortions do occur especially within such structures. Now, at the same time, we can track a few key levels we could expect, and I will provide you the area of support to track in a moment. But before that, a few key levels to watch for potential resistances that would prove difficult to break. Here we have the 38.2% retracement at the $36.4 level. That is the ideal target for a wave 4. Oftentimes, from this level zone, we create the 50 to the downside. We start the continuation of our larger trend. Secondly, we have our previous swing high in this area at around the $35.9 level. This might also provide some resistance that we need to watch out for, and we should be prepared to form a more significant top, possibly even within this area. Now, internally, within this pattern, we won't look too much into it. Yeah, we can actually even go here briefly on the 5-minute time frame to provide more clearly the area of support, but I would be watching for continuation to higher prices, the levels down to the 50% retracement. So I'm watching the area of support between the $33.5 all the way down to the $32 level. Below the 50% retracement, it would be a strong signal that this has already formed a more significant top, never mind the actual structure. Remember, it's the 5-minute time frame. What are we even talking about? It's the nano time frame. It's not going to be reliable to look for positions or anything like that, but it is going to provide us a signal that if we break the 50% retracement, that a more substantial top should be expected to be in place. Now, could I see it break and still recover? Of course, the distortions can play out both ways, and in the same expectation we have for this to possibly allow a completion of our supposed wave C to the upside, where we might consider this to be built in within this very sharp movement. Yeah, we have had a very sharp increase during the pre-market, courtesy of the improved guidance provided in the earnings report. Nothing significant from a time frame perspective that is somewhat readable, somewhat relevant. I'm still looking for lower prices. Again, below the $39.6, we cannot look for a more established uptrend to form, especially if we don't have an initial 5-wave move to the upside. Now, we might form this structure, this initial 5-wave move, within the bounds of this area of resistance, but until such is the case that we get either this structure or we get the break, I am still looking with high likelihood for continuation to even lower prices. We could even zoom out a little bit to identify additional levels of resistance, of structural resistance we could track. And yeah, here around the $37 level, we have some additional previous stop that we have formed. So I would be considering this, let's say between the, what is it? The $38 to the $37 level. Yeah, around that area is going to be once again quite difficult to get through. And one more thing before we end the video, even if we break this last level of resistance, it would not automatically mean we are in the green interpretation and we are going in the next wave to the upside, yeah? It could very easily be the case that we only need to track a slightly different scenario. Remember, if we were to consider this wave 3 complete, it would not be the end of the world. We could find a structure within which we could consider a pattern, or let's say a count rather, full. Yeah, I could track this to have been the third wave bottom. Oops. To have been the third wave bottom here, to have had the wave 4 correction here and an extension in a fifth wave in this area instead, or something like that. Nothing too significant. I could drag the area of resistance even higher. I would still need to break here the $40.3 level to invalidate the idea of a wave 3 having been formed, having a wave 4 correction and an extension even lower in a fifth wave. But for now, we are focusing on the internal structure. I believe that is yet to come. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover. And I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.